Welcome back to Hot Takes and Deep Dives, and my next guest is a one-man musical juggernaut who the New York Times called the Shakespeare of pop culture satire. He's now beginning a 3-week run at Joe's Pub where you can see each of his biggest one-man shows where he embodies Martha Stewart, Anna Wintour, and Kris Jenner. Hi, Ryan Raftery.
Hi, Jess.
How are you?
I'm doing so well. I am so excited to be on your pod. I'm a huge fan and a longtime listener.
That is so sweet. Well,
It's true.
I just found out that you're a born and bred Brooklynite.
Yes, actually, 3 of my grandparents and both of my parents and myself and my sister were all born and raised in Brooklyn.
And what neighborhood in Brooklyn?
It's called Mill Basin, which is, if you know where King's Plaza is, it's on the other side of the water. It's way south and east. There's really no reason to go there unless you live there, because there's one way in and one way out. It used to be well known for a lot of mafia. There was a lot of mafia that lived there. I don't think that Italian mafia, I don't think that they have much of a presence there anymore. But I do know that was a big thing when I was growing up.
And I just found out that you used to live in the Village, and now you've made the gay pilgrimage up to Hell's Kitchen.
Yes, and it wasn't by choice. I have to admit, I got priced out of my apartment in the Village. My landlord was very nice about it. He gave me a year to find a new place to live. But yeah, it's Hell's Kitchen is definitely I enjoy living there. I miss living downtown. Yeah. But there is so much immediacy in Hell's Kitchen. There's so much proximity to everything. If you like Thai food, there is no place in the world that is better for you than Hell's Kitchen.
You're about to launch into a 3-week residency at Joe's Pub. It's like a repertory feature that you're doing where you're doing your shows back to back to back. It's your Anna Wintour show, Martha Stewart, and the one and only Kris Jenner.
Yes. And Kris Jenner, of all the 7 shows that I've written, Kris Jenner's the only non-New Yorker. Every other one of them has been a New Yorker. And it started off as a non-conscious choice, and then it became a conscious choice with Ivanka Trump. That's when I started saying I wanted to do all New Yorkers. But the number one thing in choosing my subjects is I have to be at least low-key fascinated with them, if not high-key fascinated with them.
Yes, you pick a subject. Why don't we just go through all of the people you've done? And because you basically it's almost like fanfic around each of them.
100%.
Let's go through, just so everyone can really get to know you. Let's go through each, give the little fanfic, the world.
The elevator pitch for each one.
Yeah, the little bit of world building that you've done. So let's start. Who was the very first one you did?
Anna Wintour was first. And the Anna Wintour musical was all about I was working in fashion at the time. I was working in the PR department at Coach. And it was around the time that Coach had started to show at New York Fashion Week for the first time. And, I was just like a grunt working there. And I had to help carry the clothes to Vogue to show them to Anna Wintour. And I'll never forget, I was, I clearly wasn't in the meeting. I was in the room outside, and I can remember the way you could feel the air being disturbed, just knowing that she was on the other side. It was like The Devil Wears Prada. There were people running around with rolling racks, and you could feel the tension in the air. And I was just fascinated by her. And then, 2 weeks later, she put Kim Kardashian and Kanye West on the cover of Vogue. And there was a massive online backlash against her. And everyone was saying, Anna Wintour is over. Vogue has lost it. She's going to get fired. And then as a writer, that kind of set off a ding in my head, and I thought to myself, wow, even Anna Wintour has a boss. She could get fired. So the Anna Wintour musical is the day in the life of Anna showing up to the office in the morning, the day after the Kim and Kanye issue comes out, and her assistant says, Cy Newhouse, your boss wants to see you at 5:00. And she just spends the day ruminating about her life and her choices that bring her to putting Kim and Kanye on the cover of Vogue. And Kris Jenner keeps calling her throughout the show, and she won't take the phone call. So that's the full circle moment.
We love an integration.
Yeah, we love an integration. But that was complete, that was the first show ever, yeah.
Where did you open the Anna Wintour musical?
Joe's Pub.
Have you done them all at Joe's?
I've done them all at Joe's. Every single one. They've all started there. Yeah.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Joe's Pub is the best theater in New York City.
Hands down.
Period.
And not only for the space itself, which always just feels cool, for lack of a better word, it is such a great incubator. They are not motivated by anything else but artistic expression. And Granted, I am biased, but I will second your comment. I think that they're the greatest, like I said, incubator and a place for people to express their work. And regardless of any kind, whether you're a stand-up, a musician, a comedian, they're just the best for everything.
Little Joe's Pub trivia for you. I have a bit of trivia that I'm going to see if you can like get some things right. But this is about Joe's Pub itself.
Go for it.
Who is the biggest moneymaker annually at Joe's Pub?
Sandra Bernhard.
Yeah.
Oh, of course. Oh, yeah. That's easy. That's easy. She is a huge inspiration to me. I will never forget seeing. I wish I would have seen it live. I have the DVD of Without You, I'm Nothing.
Yeah.
And I remember being.
Look right over there.
Oh, wow. There she is.
Go describe that.
Is she, Sandra Bernhard is, what does it say over?
It's #blessed.
It's #blessed. And she signed that to you?
Well, yes, at her show. I mean, I have a collection of these DVDs. Like, I mean, can I say something?
Yeah.
My DVD player isn't even plugged in. I can't figure out how to hook it up to my TV.
Amazing.
But I still have like the box sets for like, you name it.
Why not?
They're all in there.
Oh, why not? I love that. But especially like the Without You, I'm Nothing DVD is just, I mean, I wish that it was streaming somewhere.
Cynthia Bailey is in Without You, I'm Nothing.
I know, she's the naked lady. Yep. But everything about it, I remember seeing it for the first time, and I'd never seen someone tell a story that way. I'd never seen, it seemed like stream of consciousness. It certainly was highly scripted. And she almost came to one of my shows once because obviously I had told the artistic director of Joe's Pub how much I was obsessed with her, and they connected us via email, and she was going out to LA for pilot season. She wasn't able to
Which
come.
show?
I think it was the Anna Wintour show, because the Anna Wintour show, I mean, not to toot my own horn, but like Anna Wintour's daughter came to opening night, and then she Instagrammed she came backstage and she Instagrammed a photo of us. And she called me her surrogate mother. She told me that her mom had sent her to basically report back. And then the next day, there was press in like 12 different countries. It was insane. And then so many people started coming to the show, like from the world of fashion or whatever. And then the New York Times reported on it. It was such a massive game changer that it legitimately changed the course of my career. Just the fact that her daughter came to see the show. I have never been more nervous before or since. It was almost an out-of-body experience. And the show was sold out. They had to like Goodfellas a table for her. You know what I mean? Like they literally had to put a new table out. And I made sure I knew where she was sitting. I didn't want her too close to the stage. I wouldn't want to be able to see her face. But she came backstage afterwards and she could not have been nicer. And then I had done a charity performance of the Anna Wintour musical for the Trevor Project, and I was going to donate the proceeds, and we were doing an auction in tandem with the performance. And then I got an email from Vogue. I'm like, here it is. This is the cease and desist. And they said, Anna would like to donate to your auction. And I said, that's incredible. Can she maybe sign the Kim and Kanye cover? And they said, we can do better than that. Anna wants to give you a pair of her sunglasses.
This is the sunglasses. Okay. Yeah. I was going to ask you to tell the story. Yeah.
And then I remember it was delivered by it wasn't like a security detail.
So the intention here was it was for an auction.
Correct. Anna donated those sunglasses for the auction. And then in a great stroke of luck for me, two friends of mine, unbeknownst to me, bid on the sunglasses. And now I have them. So whenever I perform the show, I'm wearing Anna Wintour sunglasses. And I will be next week on Tuesday.
So you're truly channeling.
It's like putting on the Ring of Power. Like you put those sunglasses on and you immediately she is that silhouette. She is Darth Vader and Hillary Clinton in one. Yeah. Like it's the hair, it's the sunglasses. And for this anniversary show in the trilogy, I've updated the costume, and now I'm really going for it.
We should say you are like, you're basically, I wouldn't call it drag, but like you're wearing a costume.
Oh, yeah. I'm certainly, I mean, by definition, it is drag. I just would never call myself a drag queen for any other reason that I haven't earned the right to. I don't know how to do my own makeup. I bring my my clothes come with me to the theater. I get dressed there. I always stagger the gender of the people that I play. I was always a woman, man, woman, man, woman, man. The female shows always get more traction, especially on the road.
Not surprised.
Yeah, I'm not surprised either. Also, the shows that I've done about men have tended to be, and you can interpret this however you want, they tend to be a bit more esoteric, a bit more dark. So I don't know. I mean, that's just my dime store psychology. I don't know why I do that, but the female shows tend to be, for lack of a better word, campier and more fun.
This makes complete sense.
Right.
Of course. I mean, this is the Ryan Murphy playbook.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure. You were saying like about Anna Wintour. They call her Nuclear Winter.
That's in the show.
Is it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she doesn't like that. And there's a part in the show at the very end where she asks her assistant, she goes, "What did the Post say about me today?" And this is the interesting part about these three women that I'm playing in the trilogy. Anna Wintour, Martha Stewart, and Kris Jenner are three women who are very, very, very interested in relevancy. That is the through line for these three shows. Now, their relationship to relevancy, how important it is to them and what they do to keep it, that's where the difference lies. Anna does not want to be famous. Does she like being successful? I'm sure that she does. The crux of that show is all about the fact that Anna Wintour comes from a family of very serious people. Her father was a very serious newspaper person, so is her brother, and they all think that what Anna does is silly. And that is why, in my mind, and from my research, that's why Anna is the way that she is. She's a very, very, very important person. We know that as far as
She's
politics.
still looking for acceptance from the family.
Or the dad. And in my Martha Stewart show, I don't think that Martha ever got over the fact that her husband left her for someone that worked for Martha. And for Kris Jenner grew up wanting to be rich. That is it. And she had a mother that supported that. Kris Jenner started dating a much older professional golfer when she was in her late teens. She way older than her. But he was wealthy, and then that didn't work out. And then she met Robert Kardashian when she was 19 years old. He asked her to marry him. She said no. Kris went back to being a flight attendant. Robert Kardashian went on to date Priscilla Presley. And then Robert Kardashian couldn't handle the phone calls calling from Elvis in the middle of the night. He left Priscilla Presley, then went back to Kris, who is now 22, and said, "How about now?" She said, "You know what? I'm ready to be a Beverly Hills housewife." That didn't work out for her because she cheated on him. He divorced her. Then she met KLEIN, and then all of a sudden they had nothing. I mean, that had to be love, because Kris certainly didn't marry KLEIN for money, because they had nothing between the two of them.
Well, she's the one who got the artist formerly known as Bruce Jenner. Like, she's the one who got that career back on track with all the speaking gigs.
Absolutely. And sitting on the floor of their house with an assistant that she hired, creating press kits to get KLEIN sold on the lecturing circuit. But what Kris was doing was practicing for when preparedness met opportunity and the sex tape happened. Because that's whether or not, I can't prove this, but I think that it's pretty well understood that Kris brokered that sex tape. And she knew what was going to happen. Unfortunately, Paris Hilton had to bear the brunt of that. Like, Paris was massively humiliated for it and went on David Letterman. And I don't know if you've ever seen that clip.
Course.
So cruel to her. But then by the time...
Oh, yeah. Haven't you ever seen him with Lindsay Lohan?
Like, yeah.
I've seen every Letterman.
And I mean, but nobody did Letterman our Sandy.
Nobody likes Sandy.
Nobody ever did Letterman like Sandy. Anyway, but there's a through line through all of these shows, and that is relevancy. And I've really come, and I've never met Kris, but I mean, her publicity people came to the show. So Kris's publicist came to see the show, and I know for a fact that they let the family know about it. Khloe posted on Instagram that she couldn't believe that a Kris Jenner musical was really happening, and that was very cool. And then it was looking like they were going to post something, and then like they said, well, why don't you... Her people were like, why don't you give us an idea of some copy that she could write? And it was around Mother's Day. I'm like, hey, it's Mother's Day. America's Most Famous Mom is getting her own musical. And then because my show deals with the Kris Jenner musical is about Kris going to Laos for an experimental fertility treatment to have more kids to whore out. And then something goes wrong and she's left with temporary amnesia.
This is where the fanfic comes in.
Right. Every single one of the shows has, I always like to say the skeleton of my shows are always real, and the musculature is conjecture. I make that all up for comedic purposes. And then in the Kris Jenner musical, she thinks that when she gets temporary amnesia, she thinks that the fertility treatment didn't work, but then all of a sudden, halfway through the show, she realizes she's pregnant with a girl. And then she goes back to America when she gets her memory back, but then when she gets back to America, she finds out that Roe v. Wade is overturned, and she doesn't think that she can bring another kid into the world, and she wants to have an abortion and can't. So you can understand why the Kardashian camp did not want to post anything once they found out about the abortion angle in my show. Oh, well.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was a lot.
Yeah, I know.
The thing that I find that I always found fascinating about Kris Jenner and Robert Kardashian is that he was so old school. Like, he almost was trying to turn her into a Stepford wife.
That's in the show too. Yep. He used to give her books. He used to give her books on
like
how to be a housewife.
Hosting, yeah.
Yep. Entertaining. And Martha Stewart's, the second most famous cookbook in the history of publishing is Martha Stewart's Entertaining. The first is Julia Child's Joy of Cooking. Wait, no, it's not. Is it Joy of Cooking? No, it's Julia Child's book. I can't remember the exact title, but Martha Stewart grew up worshiping Julia Child. And I remember in my research for her, I watched a YouTube video from Julia Child's show called Baking with Julia, where Julia has Martha on. Martha is very young and not nervous at all, and shows Julia how to make a 3-tiered wedding cake made of almond paste with marzipan strawberries. And Julia Child looks at Martha and says, how do you get this strawberries to have the realistic looking indentations? And then Martha says, oh, you just use a cheese grater, but you use the fine side and you gently roll it. And Julia Child looks at the camera like, is this bitch for real? But that's the thing about Martha. Came up in the 80s when it was okay to tell someone, you're going to spend 3 hours in the kitchen making dinner tonight, but it is going to be perfection. Martha sold attainable perfectionism. And then when the Rachel Rays of the world came up and said, we can get you in and out of your kitchen in 30 minutes, Martha was like, fuck, what do I do? That's where the relevancy comes in. And in my show, Martha is being watched by aliens her entire life who finally approach her and say, if you can meet us in Central Park tonight at midnight with a fitted sheet and fold it in front of us, we'll take you back to our planet with us. We want you to teach us how to live correctly. And that's all Martha's ever wanted, was to be appreciated for this phenomenal skill set that people forget that she has. Because now Martha, now that she's, in her 80s, like, Martha does a ton of licensing deals and a ton of like branding experiences, but she doesn't have the same kind of daily, she used to have a radio show and a television show. She's not really exacting that skill so much anymore. But if you follow her on Instagram, she knows everything. She could probably name 17 different breeds of horses, cats, birds. I mean, and she knows. I watched YouTubes where she looked at the camera and told you how to winterize a garden hose from memory. I mean, it all comes back to her parents. But I never, ever researched anyone the way I researched Martha.
Well, I know that something that you pull out in the Martha Stewart show is you actually execute folding a fitted sheet in 21 seconds
27.
Flat. 27 seconds
27
flat.
seconds flat.
So,
it has to be done because it's time to music.
How long did it take you to master that skill?
4 months. And I gave up many times. I reached out to friends who work in theater. I'm like, isn't there some like magic way we could do this with magnets or something? And there wasn't. And I knew that I had to do Martha proud and I had to execute some sort of skill on stage. And I wasn't going to cook something on stage. It didn't like, and everybody in all of those polls that I read on like, Good Housekeeping, everyone's like, if there's one thing you wish you knew how to do, people say, I wish I knew how to fold a fitted sheet. And I'm a lefty. And so a lot of the videos I was watching were done by righties. And that's why I was not getting it as quickly as and then I finally realized, wait a second, I just need to turn this around. And then I got it. And now obviously it's one of those things you learn.
Does
you
the
will
crowd
never
erupt?
Forget. People lose their minds. I'm not gonna lie. Like the Martha Stewart show traveled quite a bit throughout the country. There were times where people would scream, like I would see people's faces, like, because at the end, because it's talked about throughout the show, and then by the time it happens at the very end of the show, Martha widens her arms with the fitted sheet, and people are like, no, and like people start leaning forward. Like even it's anxiety inducing because it has to happen in that time frame, but. Once you learn how to do it, you never forget how to do it. So yes, I've been practicing, but I'm not worried about it at all anymore.
Let me before we get into the men that you've done, going into this run, like you've never done the different shows in sequence like
in
that?
Repertory. No, I've never done that.
How are you mentally preparing to, because it's a lot of memorization.
Yes.
Like, how are you preparing to be able to like shift the energy and the performance night after night?
Well, that famous Oscar Wilde quote, "The anxiety is unbearable. I hope it lasts forever." Yeah. It's a lot of memorization. It's a lot of run. I will run every show the day of the show in my head. The Kris Jenner show is just me. So that's, either easier or harder, depending on how you look at it. But the Martha Stewart show has 3 other characters. Snoop Dogg is in the show. The show focuses a lot on Martha's real relationship with her daughter, which is kind of interesting, for lack of a better word. And then there's a scene with a prisoner. When Martha goes to prisoner, there's like a really like sweet little duet set to the song "What About Love" from The Color Purple.
Was it your idea to do them in repertory?
Yes. And I wanted to do that because this is the 10th anniversary, and I wanted to do something to challenge myself. And I wanted people to have the opportunity, and a lot of people are doing this,
to see all 3,
to see all 3, to see 10 years of my work in 3 nights, kind of like the Ring cycle, like the Wagner's operatic Ring cycle. Like if you wanted to, you can come Tuesday night and see Anna Wintour, Wednesday night and see Martha Stewart, and see Kris Jenner on Thursday, and really figure out what that through line is for yourself. And like I said earlier, the bookend, like really like kind of satisfying part is that Kris Jenner was the reason that Kim and Kanye got on the cover of Vogue. It wasn't Anna Wintour's idea. It was Chris's incessant kind of hounding of Anna Wintour to do it.
Out of curiosity, which of the 3 is selling the best?
Martha. That's a very easy. Martha, I have never in my entire life as a performer been able to feel the excitement of the audience from backstage before I even set foot on the stage like Martha Stewart. There is, I have chills now talking about it. There's something about the way that I connected to people through the television. And I think that there's something about the aspirational, like I said before, like the way that Martha sells attainable perfectionism. It's something like we see she dared America to try harder and to be better. And I think that we look at her and we were like, I wish that I could learn how to. I wish that I could learn how to fold a fitted sheet. I wish I had the time to cook my dog's gourmet food, which she does. Martha Stewart's animals do not eat dog food or cat food. They eat food that is prepared by a chef. I don't wish this necessarily, but Martha Stewart loves Christian Louboutins but hates the red soles. So she has her, I'm doing air quotes now, wardrobe mistress, probably just a housekeeper that she calls her wardrobe mistress, use a broad Sharpie and color the bottoms of the soles black because she thinks the red soles are garish, but she says they're so comfortable. But to care that much. Also, there's a part in the show where Martha Stewart like joins a table in the audience for a dinner party. And it's all about how Martha is just fucking horrified by and this is before she starts her catering. This is like the genesis of her empire built and starting the catering company. Like she just goes to, and it's set to Crazy in Love, but the 50 Shades of Grey version, so it's slow.
Oh, amazing.
And like Martha is just slowly losing her mind, looking around at the fact that they didn't set out name cards, so all the couples naturally sat next to each other, thus diminishing communal conversation. The forks are on the right, they should be on the left. She's serving red wine with chicken. Do you know what I mean? Like but all of these little things, like imagine inviting Martha Stewart to your house. The judgment starts with the invitation. How did you invite her? And then she gets to your house. She knows everything about the design of your chairs, the kind of paint you use on the walls, the kind of refrigerator you have, the kind of dog you have. Martha knows about everything. And I think that's what translates.
Not a lot of fun.
Probably not. Martha, so the interesting thing about Anna and Martha, not so much Kris, because Kris, of all the people I talk to who know her, nobody has anything but nice things to say about the Kardashians. They are professional. They show up on time. They are kind to everybody on sets. That is not the case for Martha Stewart.
Who have you spoken to in Martha's camp and in Anna Wintour's camp?
Great question. So when I first did the Anna Wintour show, that was my very first show. So that show was largely conjecture. That was a lot of research that I read books about her, but I didn't talk to too many people in her life. I talked to people who worked at Vogue, but people who were like lower on the ladder who didn't have direct access to her. But Martha, I talked to the guy who did her 2 Vanity Fair articles, Matt Tiernaro, who has come to my shows, and he's been really great. I talked to the guy who directed the last 4 years of her television show, who told me a lot of stories about her.
Give me 2 stories.
So, number 1, Martha had a production meeting, like most television shows do, especially daily shows like that, every day. And Martha would have her feet up on like a little stool, having them massaged by someone during the production meetings. And her director walked into the room. Remember, this is her director. And he came into the room and sat down. Someone else was presenting, and Martha can't stop staring at the director. And he thinks, oh, she's staring at me because I came in late. She's just staring at him. And then finally, literally as someone else is presenting, she says, "Did you get a haircut, Bob?" And he said, "Yeah, I did." And then the presenter keeps going. Martha's not paying any attention at all. And she says, "I think that has to be one of the worst haircuts I have ever seen." And she wasn't making a joke. And I think, but that's what I mean. Like, there's something about her eye. Now, that is not nice. That is, for lack of a better word, a cruel thing to do in front of it's demeaning in front of the rest of his staff. But I think it comes from a great place of insecurity. And again, I did so much. I mean, the story that Martha when she first got out of prison and Matt Tiernauer goes to interview her. Bruce Weber was there photographing her. Like, I mean, it was a big story. Martha Stewart went to jail for 5 months. This is the first story. She's wearing the ankle bracelet. First thing she says to Matt Tiernauer as he's walking up to the house, she says, I could take this off if I wanted to. I know how to take this off.
Yeah. Let's talk about the men who you've done. Now, you said these shows were darker. You do the Andy Cohen musical.
Uh-huh.
Now, this is the one where, if I'm correct, it's based on the fact that he and Anderson Cooper are always asked, like, why didn't you guys ever date? And Andy always says, like, oh, like, if it was going to happen, it would have happened. There was no chemistry, whatever. And give your fan fiction on this.
So my Andy Cohen show is about a boy who grew up in St. Louis, which is true. He grew up in St. Louis, and he had a mother who was obsessed with Gloria Vanderbilt. This is not true. This is the part that I made up. And Andy Cohen used to always think that his mom's Gloria Vanderbilt obsession was funny. Like in my show, she sent him to school in Gloria Vanderbilt jeans. Not true. But then Andy found out about Gloria Vanderbilt's son, and he was everything that Andy wanted to be. He was erudite. He was attractive. He was rich. And Andy became obsessed with him. So Andy moves to New York to pursue his two passions, which are television and Anderson Cooper. And throughout the show, he keeps running into Anderson Cooper, who cannot remember his name. And Anderson Cooper is just always saying, wow, can you believe that Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos are here? And Anderson is obsessed with celebrity. And so Andy Cohen, Andy Cohen meets Barry Diller with This Part Is True.
In the show, Anderson Cooper is obsessed with celebrity.
Anderson Cooper is obsessed
with
celebrity.
But ignores Andy.
Andy. So you see where this is going.
Yeah.
So Andy Cohen becomes a television programming executive and then gives himself his own television show to become famous enough that Anderson Cooper will like him. And then when it's not happening fast enough, Andy Cohen and Nene Leakes conspire to get Benjamin Massani, who is Anderson Cooper's boyfriend, deported. And because Nene has a cousin who works at ICE, and it's a whole like song that's called "Fame Me." That is a parody of "Feed Me" from Little Shop of Horrors, where Nene Leakes says, "I want my own show, and I will make Anderson Cooper's boyfriend disappear." So then they get him deported, and then Andy thinks that, wow, this is the end of the show. Andy thinks, wow, I'm finally going to get Anderson Cooper. And then Anderson comes by because he is excited that Julia Roberts is on Watch What Happens Live, because he wanted to be there for that. And then he says, well, I just, thought now that your boyfriend got deported, maybe. He's like, wait, what? How do you know about that? He goes, oh, nothing. And then he goes, but didn't that happen? Isn't Ben gone? He goes, no. He goes, I made a couple of phone calls. I'm a Vanderbilt, Andy. I can get he's back in the country. And then Anderson is heading to his seat to watch What Happens Live, and he says to Andy at the end of the show, Andy asks Anderson as he's leaving, he goes, hey, can I just ask you a question? Why not me? Like,
Yes.
why couldn't you date me? And then Anderson oh, come on, Andy. No, he goes, no, seriously, I want to know. He goes, Andy, I think you're adorable. Everybody does. I could just never be with someone who does what you do for a living. I think it's gross. Have a good show. And then he walks out, and Andy is just disconsolate. He is just like he's been hit by a truck.
Have Andy or Anderson seen the show?
Andy sent me flowers on after opening night. I think that a bunch of housewives came, and somebody else came that knows him, who told me that I don't think he liked the idea of it. I think that he might have known that it wasn't super flattering, but it's also not flattering because it's so obviously a joke.
Yeah.
And it's so and regardless of how you feel about Andy Cohen, he has created it's kind of akin to like the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Oh, yeah.
It's a huge, it brings joy
But
to
that's
so
funny
many
that
people.
it's funny to me that housewives would go see, although I get the housewives are more obsessed with Andy than anybody.
Dolores came twice. I mean, Dorinda came, Lisa Rinna came. Oh no, actually Lisa Rinna just came to an event we did in LA. She didn't come to the show. But Heather, what was her last name, from New York?
Heather Thompson.
Heather Thompson, she came to the show. But yeah, I mean, it was, I think that why not? I mean, it
Do you find for when you have like special guests or whatever, known people in the audience, do you know ahead of time?
Yeah, Gwyneth Paltrow came to see the Calvin Klein musical, and she was name-checked in that show, which was exciting, and she had been from the beginning. And she came backstage, and she was super duper sweet. And I remember where she was sitting and the way, yeah, I mean, it's hard when someone that famous comes to the show. They just totally kind of take over the room.
Yeah.
Gayle King has come to a bunch of shows, and I've always there was when Gayle King came to the Martha Stewart show, there was this couple that walked in late. And I just use, like you say, like when you're in a cabaret, you can't not use that. This couple came in very late, and they were sitting in the front row. And then Martha said, Gayle King showed up on time, and I'm pretty sure she's busier than you. So that was pretty cool.
Great.
Yeah, that was fun. Oh, that was fun. You can't not use that stuff, like it's, especially when there are famous people in the audience. Bernadette Peters came and asked to hold the curtain, which I didn't know that anybody did anymore. That's such an old school badass.
Really?
That is so fucking cool.
Wait, so what, you were going on at 7?
We were going on at 7, and then no one had come to get me in my dressing room, and I kind of opened the door. I was like, "What's going on?" And then I saw like this little like group of people very, very, very nervously talking, and I'm like, "Okay, what's going on? Did someone not show up, or is something wrong?" And they said, "No, we're holding the curtain." I'm like, "Why?" They were like, "We don't want to freak you out." I'm like, "No, you can tell me." They were like, "Bernadette Peters is coming, and we're holding the curtain for her." I was like, "Wow." So that was definitely pretty cool.
Amazing.
Yeah, that was very cool.
So not only do you do Andy Cohen, you do his actual, what I think he's like kind of based his life on, or certainly his career, his aspirations, Andy Warhol.
Yeah, it's talked about in the show. In the Andy Cohen show, he talks about his first day in New York. He saw Andy Warhol on the street.
So what is the basis for the Andy Warhol?
The Andy Warhol show that's an easy elevator pitch. He is on trial in the afterlife for creating influencer culture. And
amazing.
Yeah, and then he Andy is definitely the precursor to Bravo. Andy Warhol is definitely the precursor to Bravo because of his intense celebrity worship. Andy, the first celebrity Andy Warhol was obsessed with was Shirley Temple, and then it was Truman Capote. And in my show, Truman Capote kind of becomes he is the foreman of the jury that delivers the verdict. But they all kind of like, remember in the movie Ghost, the way Whoopi Goldberg would take over, people would take over Whoopi Goldberg's body. So then Andy Warhol gets like possessed by Marilyn Monroe through the show, gets possessed by Truman Capote, and it was just like a fun little way of avoiding having more actors on stage. It was just a complete kind of creative decision. But
he used to carry around a tape recorder with him
everywhere.
Record
everywhere.
people.
Oh yeah.
What was that just for material for the diaries, like so he could remember?
I think that the diaries he dictated to Pat Hackett when he woke up in the morning. I think that the tape recorder, because Andy was really turned on by talkers. If you were a good talker, Andy would talk to you all night. And before he got shot, he hung out with a much more eclectic group. After he got shot, that's when he moved into just exclusively rich people. But if you know anything about Andy Warhol in the 60s, it was all like trans women, drag queens, poets, musicians. And then after he got shot, he got nervous, and all the people around him were like, we need to close ranks, and you need to stop hanging around with such fringe, there were not mine kinds of people.
So another person you've done a show around is Calvin Klein.
Mm-hmm.
Andy Warhol and Calvin Klein close friends.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, it's right in my mind because I did this documentary on Fire Island, and in the documentary, I actually read the passage from the Andy Warhol diaries where it's him talking about going to stay at Calvin Klein's.
The sex house.
The rental. Was the connection between Warhol and Calvin Klein? Which one did you do first?
I did Calvin Klein first, and that one kind of bled over from Martha because they had, the Richard Meyer buildings on West Street?
Yeah.
Those two towers. When they first opened, Calvin bought the penthouse in one building and Martha Stewart bought the penthouse in the other one. She only stayed for a couple of years and she bought another unit in the building and gave it to her daughter, and I think her daughter may still live there. But that was the connection. I just they didn't really seem to be any direct connection between them. Now, all the shows kind of bleed from one to the other, but not in a very direct way. It really is about people who have changed the way we see the world. And no two people, Martha Stewart and Calvin Klein especially. The Calvin Klein show is all about, instead of Natalie Portman and Mila Kunis in Black Swan,
yes.
It was Calvin Klein and Ralph Lauren in the world of fashion. And it was about how creating on a schedule, which fashion designers have to do, can drive you crazy. And in that show, you'll get a real kick out of this. And this is why Bernadette Peters actually came to see the show. She came to see Calvin. And in that show, Calvin is convinced that Ralph Lauren is stealing his ideas. And he's like, if only there was another American designer on the scene that could throw Ralph off my scent. And then a cleaning lady comes into his office. It's late at night. And she's like, oh, should I come back? He goes, no, do whatever you need to do. And he's Calvin smoking. And then she looks on his desk and sees these sketches. And she goes, oh, these are such beautiful sketches. I used to want to be a designer. And Calvin goes, wait a second. What's your name? She says, Donna. He says, Donna what?
Karen.
Donna Karen. And that got into the New York Times. And then it got out into the ether. And people were contacting Donna Karen herself saying, I never knew you were Calvin Klein's maid. She didn't apparently like that. And then Bernadette Peters, unbeknownst to me, is a very close friend of Donna Karen. And Bernadette and Donna Karen's longtime PR person came to see the show. And then naturally, after the show, I said to the stage manager, please bring them backstage. They left. They didn't, they left, and the stage manager didn't have a chance to bring them back. And then I happened to be at the movies. I was at the Quad seeing the Halston documentary that next weekend. And who is walking out of the theater when I'm walking in? Patty Cohen and Bernadette Peters. And I was with Patricia Field. I'm sorry, I'm being such a name dropper. But Pat Field and I had met recently from the Calvin Klein show, and she and I just started hanging out because we were going to work on a project together. And then they started talking to Pat Field, and I'm standing there, and then I said, hi, you came to see my Calvin Klein musical. And Bernadette said, that was you? And I was like, yeah. And then her friend Patty looked a little standoffish, and she said, yeah, I think the show is kind of mean to Donna. I'm like, please understand, it was totally a joke, and it comes from a prism of an ardent fan of all three of those designers. And then she kind of I think she cooled because she followed me on Instagram, so I guess that's the way of nowadays saying we're okay.
Speaking of Calvin Klein, you know who I've always been dying to interview?
Who?
Marcy Klein.
Yeah, Marcy. That would be, Marcy Klein got kidnapped.
Of course I know that.
Yeah, a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't know that story.
Really?
Yes, you would be surprised at how many people.
That's sort
do
of
not.
like that's like fact one.
Not for a lot of people. You would be surprised how many people do not know that.
When she was like 5 or something.
That is a terrifying story. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
did you ever interview her?
No, she was not interested in the show at all.
Ooh. Have you ever done these on Fire Island?
No, and I'll tell you, so I know that we both love Provincetown.
Yeah.
And the only show of mine I've ever done in Provincetown was Martha Stewart, and it was a phenomenal success. It was so much fun. Dina Martina came, Jinx Monsoon came, all of these people came to support me, and the crowds really liked it. The difference is that when you're on vacation, my shows kind of require just a tiny bit too much concentration for it. Do you know what I mean? Again, it's not a cabaret. I'm not just up there singing. I'm telling a story, and it requires concentration that might be a little bit too much for vacation. And in P-Town, I did it at the Crown and Anchor, and the guy who was running the Crown at the time was like, it cannot be longer than 70 minutes. Do people trust me? It's like when you're in Vegas, the show, you got to do Phantom of the Opera in 90 minutes because everybody wants to get back to the casino. So we were able to edit the show down to a tight 68 minutes, and it was really great. We like tracked the show. You're not going to travel with a band to go there. But what I have found is that it really doesn't, these shows really don't work in vacation destinations, and it requires a massive amount of time and energy to whittle them down. Like, for instance, the Martha Stewart show in New York is 4 characters and 82 minutes. In Provincetown, it was 2 characters and 68 minutes. So that takes a lot. It takes a lot of work. I would never. It's not that I would turn it down. I just don't think that this is the kind of entertainment that people are looking for on Fire Island.
I get it.
Do you know what I mean?
I don't know. I would see it on Fire Island, but like,
right. And again, it depends on who. But if you're talking about why the women's shows play better, there's a psychology to that. But again, the Calvin Klein show would have never done as well as it did if the New York Times did not review it on opening night, because it was the only opening night I've ever had that wasn't sold out, and I was like, fuck, I went too dark, I went too esoteric. This isn't casting as wide a net as I thought it would. But then the New York Times reviewed it, and the power of the Times, like, they like your show, a lot of people are going to come.
Let's maybe actually go back to Kris Jenner.
Sure.
This is such a fucked up question. What do you think made producers more wet when they found out that Kris Jenner wanted to transition? I'm sorry. Kris Jenner wanted to transition.
Yeah.
Bruce Jenner.
That's next.
Wanted to transition.
Yeah.
Or when the Vanderpump Rules producers found out that Tom was having an affair with Raquel.
Well, I think that the Tom and Raquel thing has become such a societal cornerstone that I think that was way bigger. I don't know. That's a hard question to answer.
I was gonna say Bruce Jenner transitioning.
But that was a huge moment. And even if you go back and watch those episodes, it is heart-wrenching, and it's impossible not to cry watching this.
Just like the sit down with Diane Sawyer.
Yes.
Like that was I had friends over to watch that interview.
Right. But then Caitlyn became such an asshole.
It went on.
So it kind of ruins it. It's literally
right.
it's just like Ivanka, like the hero that Caitlyn Jenner could have been. But you know what? Everyone is entitled to feel that the way that they want to feel. But some of the things that Caitlyn says are translate into real life hardship for other people. It's a big difference than being like Ivanka Trump and just shutting up and not doing what everybody hoped you would do in the White House.
Before we wrap up, I mean, you mentioned Truman Capote.
Yeah.
He's such a natural extent, like the Truman Capote musical. Like, I can see it in you.
Oh, it's so good.
Like, I see it.
And I do a really good impression of him. If I do say so myself.
And it's also the best voice to read people in. Like I was talking to my friend the other day who moved home to Detroit. He lived in New York for a long time. It's just the best voice.
I was like, oh, Ben Campbell couldn't hack it in New York and moved back to Detroit.
It's the best voice.
It's so
to
fucking
read.
condescending.
It's so condescending, which is funny because
It sounds like this.
like baby voice.
Yeah, like in the Andy Warhol music, it says, and Andy Warhol, his finale is a Billy Joel song. It's like a parody.
What song?
It stands for an Italian restaurant, but that's Andy's
Amazing.
thing. That's like his big end of a trial. And then Truman says,
A Billy Joel song? Really, Queen? I always knew you were nothing more than a basic bitch washed over the Allegheny River.
it's just such a great voice. And the show is so brilliant. John Robin Bates and Gus Van Sant. I
want to know what you think of the Swans.
It's brilliant. I mean, I want to liquefy it and inject it into my veins.
I love it. I've watched the first 3 episodes and I love it. But I hear a lot of criticism.
What's the criticism you hear?
People feel that it's very one note. It's like you told the story in the first episode. It's like, how are we going to keep this going? He wrote the article. They never talked to him again.
Fair enough. That's true. Yeah. And I think that
I think that he is so compelling. For me, he is so compelling. The sort of pundits that I listen to, they're all obsessed with the actresses. I'm like, I need more Callista. I need Demi Moore. I'm more focused. I think that he is giving a masterful performance. And I've always been fascinated by Truman Capote.
Me too.
So that's the draw for me.
I also
less
think
so
that,
than the women.
I think that, again, I think that Demi is going to get more stuff to do, but she's been kind of one note for the first couple. I mean, she's just like high key angry. But I mean, talk about one of the greatest film actresses. I mean, Indecent Proposal. is a movie that a lot of people don't talk about anymore. Her performance in that movie is
Well, she hasn't
heartbreaking.
worked in a while.
I know. I guess that's by her own choice, but I mean, I just think that she is phenomenal. And Callista Flockhart is so great as Lee Radziwill, and Naomi Watts has never been better.
She's another one. I was a huge Ally McBeal fan. I mean, like, obviously. And I mean, for people who like miss the window, for people who are like in like 30 years old or like, 30 to 30, if you're not 40, you probably missed it. Go watch Ally McBeal. They don't make television shows like that anymore.
She's phenomenal.
But it's when this show came out, I was like, when the last time did Callista Flockhart work? And I was just pulling up all the IMDb's, and I think she kind of like retired. She's married to Harrison Ford. I think she's just like chilling and has a kid.
Yeah.
But Naomi Watts, like, I'm a huge fan. I love. She actually did a series on Netflix. It was canceled after one season, but I think you can still watch it. It's called Gypsy.
I have to see it.
Okay, you ready for this? Here's the plot. Yeah, Naomi Watts is married to like the actor, I forget, like some famous guy. They live, I think, on the Upper West Side, and she's a therapist. And so you see her with her clients. She's very codependent with her clients and begins kind of stalking their lives. And one of her clients is a young guy who's like broken up over like his girlfriend, who like he can't pin her down. Like, she broke up with him. She goes to where this girl works. She's a barista on the Upper West Side, and they begin having an affair.
Oh my God. I have to go watch it.
The girl lives in Bushwick, like lives in Brooklyn, and they begin like you see Naomi Watts getting off. What's like the name of one of the stops on the L?
Bedford?
It's literally no, not Bedford. It's literally the name of the. I'm so possessed by this show. I was so possessed. The name of the stop. Oh, hold on, I have to find it.
Oh my God, I need to watch it.
The name of the episode is Morgan Stop. Episode 2. I've just pulled up the Wikipedia. Episode 2. Spoiler alert. It's when they hook up.
I need to watch
Episode 2. Morgan Stop. And it's so good.
I can't wait.
And it's filmed all in New York City.
I can't believe I never heard of it.
I remember Sandra talking about Loving Gypsy on Sandyland when it was airing. And I was like, the only other person I know who's watching it is Sandra Bernhard.
Have you ever had her on this show?
It's one of my finest moments.
Oh my God. I have to go back and listen to that.
I actually have interviewed Sandy twice. Once when I was a writer at Autostraddle, this independent lesbian site. So I interviewed her actually backstage at Joe's Pub, up in the dressing room.
Oh yeah.
Up in the dressing room, I interviewed her, and it was like on tape recorder. It's like a transcribed interview. And then I finally got to do the proper,
I have to go back and listen to that.
It's good.
I'm so obsessed.
I mean, not to,
Oh no, you should.
But it's everyone should immediately run to that after listening to this.
I'm going to.
Yeah.
I certainly will.
Yeah. I adore you.
I adore you.
Talk about a talker.
Oh, I mean, from one to another.
I mean, they would love you.
I'm so excited. I would love to meet Sandy. So if she's listening, Sandy, come see one of my shows.
Go over to Cook Shop. She's sitting right there.
Is she? Is she always there?
She's always there.
I love that. I saw her in Provincetown.
And she's
this
always
summer.
at Whole Foods. Wait a second. Then we were in P-Town the same time because
I saw her walking down Commercial Street this summer.
Me too.
Was it early August?
Yes.
I think? Yeah.
The first week of August. Because I go for my birthday, which is July 31st.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not going to lie, we did follow her for a few shops. They were heading to the East End. Love to look at the galleries.
We love that.
Tell everybody. Well, I mean, obviously, go to joespub.com, get tickets. You're running for 3 weeks. What is the exact run of the show, the dates?
The show starts on Tuesday, February 27th, and then it ends on Thursday, March 14th. The Anna Wintour Show plays on Tuesdays, Martha Stewart on Wednesdays, Kris Jenner on Thursdays for 3 weeks. 3 divas with 3 very different manicures.
We've really learned a lot today.
I'm so happy.
And tell everybody your Instagram.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're on TikTok, but like go for it.
I am. I mean, but I'm not really that like active on TikTok.
You're very active on Instagram.
Yes, I love my Instagram. It's Ryan Raftery, Raftery. And yeah, I mean, I'm very, very, very. If you message me on Instagram, I will give you a promo code for the tickets. If anyone who's listening wants to come, I'll be happy to extend to any of your listeners. I can just tell you now, it's Ryan45, RYAN45.
You gave it away. Ryan45, guys.
Yeah, $45 tickets to the Titans of Media trilogy of female empowerment. Anna Wintour, Martha Stewart, Kris Jenner. I hope you'll all come. And Jess, this.
Oh, I'm going to be there.
I know
you
you're
know
coming.
I'm coming opening night with friends.
I know. I'm so excited, and I hope you'll be enticed to come back and see the other two.
Guys, you can follow me on Instagram, JessXNYC. If you go to YouTube, you can watch the Sandra Bernhard interview, which I think, you know what, you do, because she's like sitting on her bed.
Need to.
So
Must
do that. And Ryan and I will see you soon.
Jess, this was a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.